In this video, we are going to create a Power Automate Cloud Flow that will get Salesforce metadata and then filter that metadata down to specific fields and pick list values that we need. So let's get started. So this flow is manually triggered, but you can set up the flow any way that you want. You can have any kind of trigger, but my plan is to use this as a child flow, and the parent flows are going to call to this flow in order to get specific pick list values from a Salesforce case, where the Salesforce subject, or excuse me, the case subject is a particular subject I'm filtering for to get the pick list values of that field called subject. So let's go ahead and add our first action in here. It's going to be a Salesforce action. So if we search Salesforce and then we go to see more, there is an action called send HTTP request, which is this one here. And then we need a URI, and the URI for my example is going to be to get cases, specifically the specific object called case. And then we need this end part called describe. It's going to get any details related to case. The method is get, and you don't need to change anything else for content type. So that's going to be our full request. Now that's going to return a lot of data. And I'm actually going to go over to the object manager here. And if we search case, we're going to see that there is a lot of data around cases in our Salesforce instance under fields and relationships. There's all of these fields. There's just so many, and it's going to return everything. And obviously, we're trying to go after a very specific piece of metadata. Our use case is for finding pick list values for a certain field in the case, which is called subject. And just within that, there are a ton of pick list values. So if I search subject in here, and the specific one is this thing called LR subject, and then this will show us in the case manager how many pick list values there are. And you can see there is hundreds of them, but we only want specific ones that are related to a particular validation rule. And the validation rule will result in only a dozen or so particular pick list values. And those are the ones that we're searching for. So we're also going to have some multiple filters in here in order to get right down to those specific ones, specific pick list values that we need. So now that we have that first action in, we're going to add in a parse JSON action. And in order to get our schema for our parse JSON action, we're going to need to run this flow once as it is right now. So I'm going to do a test, a manual test, hit save and test. And then run float. And done. And once this ran, we can go back, search for our run history, click on our run history, and then open this action. And then we'll get the body of the outputs. You can click copy here. I'm just going to open my notepad and I'm going to paste the outputs over here, and it actually is not working. Lately, I'm not sure if it's my browser or what, but I'm not able to use this copy key here. So one other option that you can do is click show raw outputs. And then here you can do Control A will select all, and then Control C for copy. And then I can paste it now over here and it will work. So that's copying the outputs. And as we can see, if we start scrolling here, I mean, the outputs is huge because it's there's so much data. And that's going to be true probably for you in any particular object, whether it's a subscription or account or a contact, whatever it might be. So in this case, we need to start filtering, but the first thing we need to do is go into edit. Now that we've copied that, so you want to keep that copied, and then we're going to go in here and we're going to parse this JSON. So we're going to parse this outputs here, which is in JSON format. So the content is going to be the body of the dynamic content called body of our send and HTTP request. And then we'll click here where it says use sample payload to generate schema. And then we'll paste in the JSON and click done. That's going to generate the schema here that you see right now. And then to, as I always do, change these action titles. So I'm going to change this to, this is parsing the JSON of the HTTP get case object. And now that we've parsed that, I'm going to put in a compose after this step. And I want to compose the fields. And we can see what those look like before we continue on with our filters. So I'm gonna we're gonna compose a particular call its fields, compose a particular part of the output, which is the fields. So we need to write an expression, because if you just simply do dynamic content and you search in here for fields, you're gonna see you do have this one called body fields. You've got another one called body field, and then body name field. You got a few different ones, but none of the outputs of our parse JSON will include just the one that we want, which is going to actually be called body fields. So what we have to do, it's a little bit tricky, but what we have to do is we have to enter in here a particular expression which will give us the fields. So here where it says add a note, I'm actually going to put in an expression here. And the reason I'm doing that is because you're going to see that we input this expression into this field, it will convert it into an expression because our expression starts with the at symbol. And now that we have our expression here pasted in, and you can get this expression from the description of the video below, we can see that it looks like an expression right now, right? And I'm going to click save. And our expression is actually going to get changed into a dynamic content label. So now I'm going to click out of this action and click back on our compose. And now we can see that here it is. This has converted the label to body.fields. If we were to go to a code view, we can see our expression that we used there. So it's there. But one thing that I like to do is use the notes to indicate how we got this label to be there in the first place, because it's not always going to be 100% clear when we're just peeking at everything, and then we don't have to toggle the code view to find out exactly how did this label get there if I can't select it from dynamic content. So I'm gonna put this in the description where it says the body.fields dynamic value is from this expression. And then I'm also going to put a note in here that says when you enter this expression into PA converts it to this dynamic content tag. So hopefully that will help to kind of recall our memory when we're troubleshooting this flow, for example, or doing maintenance on it. All right, now we can save that and we can test it, and let's see what it gives us in the outputs. Let's click here. And then over in the outputs here, we can see Let's just start scrolling down. If we click show raw outputs, we can see that it's resulting in the fields, and then specifically fields here that we can actually see the label. We can see what the field is, right? So the first field it gave us was case ID. If we scroll down a little bit, we're going to see more the field uh, labels. Look at the field labels, and we can see like here's one called deleted. So forth and so on. So basically, we're just testing to see how that works, and for troubleshooting, because now we need to filter the fields, right? So we're gonna edit. So really, this compose is not necessary, but it's gonna help us for troubleshooting down the line. So we're gonna add a new action called filter array. We're going to filter that parse JSON outputs. So select filter array. And then here again, we are going to run into that same thing with the fields because we need to filter the fields. So we're going to use that same expression that we used in our compose action previously. So here I'm going to paste that same expression in. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my note as well. So like here, I'll put the from. This is what was used in the from field. And then we're going to make an expression for the filter query part. So I'm going to put filter query here, and then I'm going to paste in another expression. And you can find this expression below. That's going to filter for filter the fields for any field that's called, or for the field, excuse me, where the name is equal to LR subject. So that's the field I'm looking for, right? Subject could be different. It's going to be different for you. And then I'm going to click edit advanced mode, and I'm going to paste in that expression, filter query expression right there. Now that I've done that, let's actually update this one too, because I'm going to note that we're filtering the body fields. And let's click save. And we're going to run this. So let's test it. And then let's click on here and let's do show raw outputs. Now we can see here where this one right here is the field here. And if we look at the label, we can see LR subject. So it filtered for the LR subject. Now this is where you see this last label, or this last picklistValues, and it's a ton of values. And you can see for each one that there is something called validFor, and that's the validation rule that I was talking about earlier. And we want to filter for a specific validation rule that's related to my department, which is training. And so all that I have to do is figure out which one is that. I happen to know. I know what labels what picklistValues, excuse me, I'm looking for. And so one thing what we can do is just do a Control A to select all, and Control C. We can go back to our notepad here, and let's just paste that in here. And then I happen to know my validation rule because I get that from the object manager. It actually is this one right here, because my labels, my picklistValues, excuse me, are all the way at the bottom of the JSON code. They just happen to be there. So I'm going to do Control F for control find, paste that in there, hit enter. And then that will give me all of the, excuse me, that will give me all of the picklistValues that I need. So starting from here and going down, there's about a dozen in there. But I need to know that validation rule because I am going to filter for that in my flow. So I'm going to edit. And then we need to add another filter array. This filter array is going to filter picklist values of that particular subject that we filtered for. So for this one, let's just call it picklist values. The picklist values, we have another expression that we're going to use in our from field. And once again, I'm going to include that up here for reference. Again, something you can just get by peeking at the code, but it's easier for me to just look there and for other people as well who may not know what to look for. And then I'm also going to do a filter query here. I have an expression again that I'm going to use down there. So I'm going to put that up here as well. Again, filter query, and then paste that there. Click on advanced mode and paste that in there. I'm going to hit save. Now I didn't show you this the last time I hit save, but I will show you once it's saved. If we click here, we're going to see it converted these again from expressions to dynamic content labels, and that will happen. And then if we click here, it did the same for this one, but not for this one. But that's fine. So you can see, even though we switch to advanced mode, it will switch back to basic mode, but that's fine. Okay, so we filtered for that. And of course, we can run it again, but I already showed you just running it for this one. Of course, you can run it again and test to make sure it's going to filter for just those. But I have set this flow up already, so I know that everything's running as expected. But I want to do an additional action that's going to select the picklist values, specific picklist values from the array that this will create, the array of picklist values filtered by this validation rule. And then that way it will result in just like a simplified list. So let's go ahead and actually test this just so I can show you what the outputs of this last filter are going to look like, because it's going to give us a list with a few different items in it. So let's do show raw outputs, and here are our list. Here is our list, excuse me. And you can see that each picklist value's got, you know, like what is the active is true, the label, the validation rule, the value. And I want to now just select only the labels from that list, because that's what I want. I want my final output of this flow to just be a list of labels, right? And that's it. Because I'm going to pass those back to my parent flow to use for further actions. So let's just do that. Let's add one final action. So I'm going to edit. And the action we want is called select. Select. And what we're selecting from is the picklist value array. So our from, once again, let's do notes. So our from, we have an expression, looks like this, simple one. So that's the body. We paste that expression in and it flips to the dynamic content label right away. And then here, the one that we're going to select is label, and the value, we can do dynamic content this time, is the dynamic value from our filter array picklist values. Oh, that actually doesn't work. Okay, that's fine. So for that, what we'll do is another expression. So here, put map value field is this one, this expression. And then paste that in here. That's going to get the label. Click save. And then one final test. So let's see what that looks like. Let's show raw outputs. And we can see here's our final list. So that's what you're going to result in, and you can pass that list back to your parent flow or use it in this flow to do further things. So my use case is essentially that these are subjects for cases where the subject or where the department is training. So these are all training labels. I don't want to use any other subjects, right, for that, because I can't anyways. If the case is assigned to training, it's only going to give me the ability to select these picklist values. And I'm going to have flows where the flow is essentially evaluating the case and determining which is the most suitable subject picklist value. And then it's going to update that case with that value. So that's one way that you can use it. But of course, you will have could have many use cases for getting Salesforce metadata. I hope that you found this video useful. And as always, we will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.